Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we close the book on E3 2021 by complaining about everything that wasn't there. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellis, and I'm joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going well, Patrick. I need to pose a question to you. This is a survey of one. Are you familiar with yellow watermelons?
I mean, I know that they exist, but I would say that my familiarity with them ends there.
Okay, the fact that you know that they exist is one step ahead of me. I had no idea the yellow watermelons were a thing.
Why were you in like a lane of your existence where you had to encounter a yellow watermelon?
So, my husband
had to.
My husband brought a watermelon home.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, at some point, must have started slicing the watermelon. And so today, I opened the fridge and did a legit Looney Tunes double take.
Yeah.
What?
And there was a slide whistle?
Yeah, and I was like, why is this watermelon yellow? And that is when I learned that yellow watermelons exist.
Is he just buying a watermelon? Are you guys throwing a party or something? Or what's going on?
We really like melon. Actually, he really likes watermelon. I don't like it that much. I think it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and this is why I ask. It's a lot of work, and there's no way to cut off part of the watermelon. You know what I mean? You are committing to either eating a whole watermelon or serving a whole watermelon. And I understand the latter more than I do the former.
Well, we don't really play by those rules. We will, in fact, just cut half a watermelon.
Wow.
Do our business with the that half, and then leave the other half in plastic wrap or something until the next day.
If you want something that you can just leave in plastic wrap until the next day, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch, would you like to borrow it? You can certainly try. All you gotta do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address that we can send this thing to. This is where it will go, somewhere in the United States. That's just what's easiest. And then you play the game for as long as you want. I pay for postage both ways. When you send it back, it costs you
nothing.
One thing that it might cost you is you may have to deal with Untitled Goose Game in there instead of Sonic Forces. It's a thing that we can't control. The goose is out there. The goose is loose. Is that something we can get started? The goose is loose?
I feel like
Is it too close to the juice is loose?
I guess I feel like I don't know where, but it tickles my brain in a way that we either tried or failed.
Ooh.
Or somebody else has been saying the goose is loose. That's not us.
Well, I'm going to say that's not true. We're pioneering it right now. The goose is loose. Hashtag the goose is loose. And then we are also asking that people review us on the Apple Podcast store. It's not a store, right? The Apple Podcast app. Or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate when you give us 5-star reviews. It helps people find the show. And if you are unable to review on the Apple Podcast store, store, you buy app podcasts. If you're unable to do that on the US podcast app, wherever you review us, we appreciate it. You can send us an email and we will shout you out, just as we will be shouting out Oscar today. Thank you, Oscar, for reviewing us on a Swedish podcast app.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome. And we will thank you by not singing ABBA songs. And you will be thankful that we did not.
We won't even bring them up, frankly.
Here's another thing, guys, I'm sorry. I am really stuck on this yellow watermelon thing.
Yeah.
If you were like me and I just blew your mind that yellow watermelon exists, please shoot us an email. Send us a Twitter.
Yeah.
I would love to know. I need to know how many people in the world were aware of yellow watermelon.
So was it you weren't the one cutting into it,
I
right?
was not. No,
Okay.
that would be. I would be dead. I would be shocked. I would be so
It's
surprised
like a
that it
gender
would have
reveal
killed.
party for a thing you didn't even know was happening.
And it's yellow. It is like yellow, like a lemon head candy.
Yeah.
Like it is
Bright.
very,
Yeah.
very yellow. And allegedly, I haven't tried it yet. It just tastes like regular watermelon. I know I keep going on this. It really blew my
Mark, I'm
mind
going to
today.
transition us out. We're talking about what wasn't at E3 2021 in Nintendo's presentation. Mark, let's get into it. Yes, vamping so that I can get the buttons all lined up and play the music live. Mark, before we get into what wasn't at E3, I just gotta say, and I know I said it on Tuesday's episode, I really enjoyed Nintendo's Direct for E3 this year.
It was great.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed it. If you haven't listened to us go on and on about it, you can check it out. The second episode we put out last Tuesday was all about Nintendo's E3 presentation. But I also think that it is important to note that this is the last time
Oh yes.
we're ever going to talk about E3 2021.
Yeah, so let's luxuriate in it. We're gonna just exist in the world of what is and is not E3 2021, and it's the last time we say goodbye. We put it to bed, kiss it on the cheek, and then never see it again.
That's right.
So we got two emails here to sort of start us off that are less in the vein of what wasn't there, but just to like get listener feedback on how they experienced E3. Chariot Goblin wrote into us and said, "Hey, NCS crew, I thought this E3 Direct was great. I can't wait to play a new WarioWare and a new Metroid this fall." Which is
Crazy.
unbelievable. It's so good. Nintendo definitely won E3. Two things come to mind when I look back at this Direct. With Metroid Dread, WarioWare Get It Together, and Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, there seems to be a handheld nostalgia focus with this E3 Direct, specifically on the GBA era, which I totally agree with.
It kind of makes sense. It's been almost 20 years since the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
So we are due for a 20-year nostalgia cycle.
That's true. That is what those are always based on, right? Like Happy Days came out in the 70s, was about the 50s. That 70s show came out in the 90s, was about the 70s. Is it weird to think that if there was a show like that now, it would be like about September 11th?
Yeah,
it would be like
that is weird to think about.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't like it. And then Chariot Goblin's second point, it looks like 2021 is the year of Sakamoto. Between the Famicom Detective Club remakes and Metroid Dread both releasing the same year, Sakamoto must be living the dream. Shoutouts to Sakamoto. Thumbs up emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji. Thanks. Keep up the great work. Yeah, it truly is the year of Sakamoto.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered what it seemed like after Other M. I know he had Samus Returns, right? But it seemed like there was a long period where we didn't really hear much from him. And so it is kind of nice to see him back in the limelight and getting recognized for Famicom Detective Club and now Metroid Dread. Yeah, and like I mentioned in Tuesday's episode, it feels to me that with Metroid Dread, and I could be totally wrong, that his chapter with Metroid is coming to a close. And so it's nice to see him get his due.
Yeah, absolutely. The other email we got is from Jake. Jake writes, "Good insert time here." I'm going to say evening, Mark and Patrick. I think it's safe to say Nintendo had a very successful E3 presentation. A new Smash character is always fun. A new Metroid game is always exciting too. Samus getting chased by the Emmy just puts the dread in Metroid Dread for me. And let's not forget a new WarioWare. This will be my first time playing Wario, and I'm very excited for its release. The one thing I was right on was Mario Party. I knew we were getting one or DLC. I'm very excited for Mario Party Superstars. My friends and I popped off for it big time. Lastly, the sequel to Breath of the Wild looms very sick, which I love. Looms very sick. But the thing I wanted to draw attention to is Link's hair. Dang, that hair is so fabulous. As a male with long hair, I like Link even more now. And more now. If he was left-handed again, I'd actually look like him. Okay, that one threw me for a loop. Is he not left-handed anymore?
No, he's been right-handed since Twilight Princess got mirrored on the Wii.
Right, but then it was unmirrored on the Wii U, right?
I don't know. I never played
Look,
it.
we don't know. Being a right-handed person, I don't. It's not a thing that I pay attention to. But it is cool to see like a Link with long, shaggy, weird hair.
It is, and look, I'm not saying that I buy that it is not Link,
Oh my
but
god!
I do think it is notable
Yes.
that we never actually got a look at Link other than from like a distance or from behind.
Right. Is this the ancient 1,000-year-old hero of legend? Is it somehow a pre-Ganon? Is it possibly Zelda? Nobody knows.
Right.
Which is a super exciting space to be in that we're going to be in for like a year.
At least.
At least.
Yeah.
When do you think is the next time we hear about the sequel to Breath of the
Ooh,
Wild?
I hate to hazard a guess, but I
Here we
will
go.
anyways. And I'm going to say I don't think we hear about it until next year.
Yeah, maybe even next year's E3 or the whatever January, February direct.
Yeah.
Jan Feb, probably.
I love how excited everybody is for WarioWare.
Yeah.
I'm super into it. One detail I noticed in the box art is like his pants are ripping.
Yes.
And it's just the name is just so perfect. I love the name so much.
Yeah.
Like
Get it together.
Get it
yeah.
together is just so perfect.
And like WarioWare has a history of having titles like that, right? With like smooth moves and Twisted having like the gyroscope in the Game Boy. Like it's just they're very good at that.
Yeah. And I'm also just really tickled by all of this Metroid love. I was looking today to try to figure out like how much Samus Returns had sold. And like Metroid games do not sell particularly
No,
well.
they do not.
Like I don't know that we ever got an official number from Nintendo, but from what I could see, the people feel like it's sold probably about like 500,000 copies worldwide. And it was pointed out that Animal Crossing New Horizons has by itself has sold more than the entire Metroid series in its entire like 30 years of existence.
Yeah, well, yes.
So it
Yeah.
is. So I would love if like Metroid Dread becomes this like really big phenomenon and we don't have to wait another like 20 years for a Metroid game.
Yeah, even if it is just like a moderate Switch phenomenon, so it sells like 3 or 4 million copies. Like
that would be so incredible.
that would be
for a
amazing.
Metroid game.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So thank you, Jake. Thank you, Chariot Goblin. We appreciate hearing your experiences of E3. Mark, now let's get into what was not there.
Yeah.
Because look, anytime we go into a direct and every time we go into E3, we get ourselves wrapped around the axle, being like, what are they going to talk about? Here are some rumors. Here are some people working on some things. Maybe we'll hear about that. Here are some games that we heard about 4 years ago. Where are they? So that's all. I think that is the bucket of ingredients that we are pulling from to make this stew.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's a great point that you brought up at the beginning that we liked this direct. We are very happy with this direct. So it's more just like as insatiable fans
Yeah.
or curious fans, we're just like, well, what's up with this?
Yeah, and truly not a complaint, but also where were these games? Let's start at the top. Let's start with Metroid because we are. I feel like that's going to be a refrain that we utter for the next couple months. Let's start with Metroid. Obviously, Metroid Dread is a history-making piece of software, but we got only a name check for Metroid Prime 4. And no mention of the Metroid Prime trilogy.
Much rumored.
Yes,
Metroid
much rumored.
Prime trilogy. Been years now. I was for a long time on the Metroid Prime trilogy train. I was sure it existed. I am, I think, a skeptic now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've been in skeptic territory for a while. Just because to me it seems like there's too much that actually needs to be done or changed to make all of those games playable the same way without pointer controls.
And I also think this is just where I am at right now. And anytime there's like an E3 or a direct or anything, I get like super hyped. And so, the rumors and stuff start popping up and you're like, yeah, that could be real. I can't wait for that. Like,
yes.
Star Fox, whatever that
Star Fox Grand Prix.
Yeah, Star Fox Grand Prix was like, yes, if that exists, that would be amazing. But like Star Fox Grand Prix, which, there were a few sources that corroborated, and as far as we know, like, does not exist. And kind of like we saw with the Switch Pro rumors right before E3, I just am right now a little more skeptical of like the insiders on the internet than I have been previously.
Yeah.
Not that I think they're like getting, not that I think they're like making things up or purposely giving wrong information. I just am like learning to manage my own like hype and expectations.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Metroid Prime Trilogies was another one of those like in 2018 where, they were there were a lot of people including myself who were convinced it was going to be um premiered at the Game Awards that year. Obviously didn't end up happening. Haven't heard anything about it. I think it could make sense for them to hold it until Metroid Prime 4 is like a year away and then drop it, but yeah, I just think it doesn't exist.
I mean, it's also like for me, it falls under the Metroid 5, Metroid Dread, coming out in October, right? How am I going to play through the 4 previous games in the series? Well, I'm going to play Zero Mission on my Wii U because the game is on Game Boy Advance and it's not been ported to the Switch. I'm going to play Super Metroid on Switch. Okay, that's one. And I guess before that, I had to play Samus Returns on my 3DS, right? Like they have not bundled these games. They have not bundled the first 4 games for me for my convenience so that it's easy for me to do that before playing 5. Just like I think they're not going to do that in a convenient way for the Prime series either.
Yeah. I mean, with all this stuff, I remain eternally hopeful. It's like, great. Yeah, like I hope Metroid Prime Trilogy turns out to be real, but I'm with you. I am skeptical of its existence right now.
And Prime 4, maybe this doesn't count because they did in fact say that the words Metroid Prime 4, but really only to say is still in development. I guess fine, right?
Yeah, I think nice and reassuring, kind of like with the Aonuma's segment, where I think Nintendo in these directs are very precise with their words in a lot of instances, and where Aonuma was like, I mean, straight up, there wasn't much to read into it. Like he was just like, "There's no more games coming for Switch this year."
Right.
I feel similarly with Metroid Prime 4 because I do think that if you're a more casual fan, especially of Metroid, which is like a fairly niche series, you wouldn't necessarily be like, "Oh, right," like I think you could confuse Metroid Prime 4 like, oh, that turned into Dread.
Sure.
And so I think they needed to make that distinction to be like, Metroid Prime 4 still exists, still being worked on. This is a separate project.
Man, do you remember when they announced the Metroid Prime Federation Forces, that like it was a lead in as though they were going to be talking about a new Metroid game, even a new Metroid Prime game, and then we're like, and it's this. It feels like they've gotten better at managing expectations, right?
I wonder how much of that of like fan reaction they pay attention to. It's really hard to know with Nintendo, but that one especially seems like they were taken aback with how voraciously negative the reaction to that game was.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to know what Nintendo fans want of a Metroid game, but I think it is easy to identify what they do not want, and that's just what Federation Forces was.
Yeah, I have never played Federation Forces. That's one that I think could be fun.
Yeah, totally.
To like visit. I was gonna say revisit, but since I've never played it, that would not be the case. But because I think it's a swing that makes sense for Metroid. Again, we were just talking about how like small that series sells. Even like its best selling ones are like, I think the first Prime game was a little over 2 million, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the numbers that Fire Emblem Three Houses did on Switch. And so it's like, yeah, why not take a swing with Federation Forces, right? Like,
sure.
That could. I think it did really poorly, but
yeah,
why
well,
not
I mean,
take the swing?
I think the 3DS, for all of its like similarities to like the PSP and the DS, and therefore like for all of the similarities to like, or possible similarities to like the Monster Hunter craze, that like it just wasn't actually well suited for multiplayer, and like people meeting up at places and playing those games together. Again, I think you're right. I think it would be fun to get together, you, me, and someone else, to play Federation Forces, to play Triforce Heroes, but those are just games that seemed ill suited to the platform.
Yeah, totally.
Or at least to the way people were actually using the platform.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that, insiders were talking about, but didn't, or there were reports that something was brewing, but nothing ended up happening. The new Nintendo Switch Nintendo Switch Pro,
Yep.
the next iteration, which there has been smoke on something brewing for years. And it really came to a head in the week or two right before E3, but we heard nothing at all.
Yeah, Zippo. And we sort of expected this. Nintendo was very specific in their announcement of their E3 Direct that they were going to just show off 40 minutes of footage for software. We're getting at, like, the language there is very specific, right?
Mhm.
They wanted us to go in knowing they will not talk about the new Nintendo Switch, and that's exactly what happened. No surprises there. I think the disappointment is more around it not being present just anywhere else. And I mean, also, we're recording this on Tuesday evening for release on Thursday. I would not be surprised if there is a video that goes up between now and then, or whenever, just being like, here's the new model of Nintendo Switch.
I feel like that there is always a risk with
Yeah.
Nintendo that, like, as we're recording, something big is going to drop. I am less worried about something like that happening. I think it would be cool. I just for all the talk, like the Bloomberg report was so specific, right?
Yeah.
It was saying, hey, this is going to go in production as early as July for release this fall. That's like, and a lot of times, and I think it was for this report, their sources are like component suppliers or manufacturers. So it's like the people who would be ramping up production in anticipation of this going live. So it feels on the one hand super weird to me that we would be getting those reports and that we wouldn't be hearing about this soon. But on the other hand, it just feels the timing of the Switch Pro just feels so strange
Yeah.
in the fact that, like, what is the benefit to Nintendo
There's
in
none.
releasing
There's
it in
none.
this moment?
Right, because normally you do this, like, this mid-generation system refresh, or even move on to the new generation because you suspect there is a market for it in a way that there isn't a market for the earlier versions of the console or the previous generation console. But there is still a ravenous market for current model Nintendo Switches. So it's like, yeah, what do they stand to benefit other than they sell out all of them that they make because everyone who has, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people who own Switches, especially people who bought them early, are ready for a refresh. But like, I don't know, is that enough to like just get the like insane Nintendo enthusiast market?
Yeah, that's a great point. I wonder, I mean, I guess it is also possible that when development of the system and planning of this system was going on, probably like 2 years ago, who would have any idea that the
Sure.
Switch would be in its like fifth year and still going as strong as ever?
Yeah.
Like probably stronger. And so it's totally possible that, like, hey, like these are just the dominoes that were already set in place and they're falling on the timeline that they were supposed to fall. But it just so happens that, like, there was a worldwide pandemic
Yep.
and there's a chip shortage
Mm-hmm.
and like demand for gaming has just gone through the roof. And so the Nintendo Switch is having like its strongest year ever. Who could have possibly foreseen that?
Right. No one.
So it's like, yes, do I believe that something like this exists? It makes a certain amount of sense. The timing to me is where I can't wrap my head around it.
I also think that to your point about information coming from people who are actually on the manufacturing lines and sourcing product and whatever so they can make these things, just because Nintendo is making stuff does not mean that they are releasing it within a couple months. It could be that Nintendo, and I don't actually put too much stock in this, but it could be that Nintendo has learned a lesson about like scarcity or like an abundance of scarcity, and just knowing that there are scalpers ahoy who are going to buy everything that they put out as fast as they can so they can resell it. I wonder if they're like trying to safeguard against that and like actually building up enough stock to sell them in numbers that make sense for the demand.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I feel like that would just have to be a short fuse though, just for financial
Yeah.
reasons, like boring like business reasons, like stocking up all this inventory and then just
Costs
sitting
a
on
lot
it
of
for
money. Yeah.
months. Would yeah. But I really don't know. The Switch Pro is such a mystery to me. We've talked about before, like I don't understand how Nintendo would market it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like I am willing to believe anything about this. because it totally seems like anything would be possible.
And then I think the last point I want to make on it is that it does them no favors to announce that the thing is available for sale on basically until they start shipping them out.
Yeah.
Right. Like, again, as long as they're already selling Switches on the shelves, why snipe that market out from under yourself?
And you have a note in here about other things that we didn't like hear about that were not software related. Like no mention of the Super Mario Brothers movie, no mention of like Super Nintendo Land at Universal Japan or like the upcoming one in Universal Studios Hollywood. No like mention of mobile games, like none of that. Like
Yeah.
it was very Switch software focused, which again, they told us it was going to be. And like I appreciate that
Yeah, me too.
we didn't like spend a lot of time on some new mobile game or anything like that.
Yeah, it's smart of Nintendo to be like, oh yeah, this thing is E3. Let's just make the presentation for an E3 audience. And when they want to do another theme park direct, like they did one
Yeah.
for opening Super Nintendo Land. All right, Mark. Now let's move on into what is something that I feel like we all got a little bit too hyped up about. Whatever that Donkey Kong game is that was rumored coming out of EAD Tokyo. Nothing on that.
Didn't show up at E3. I do feel like the guys at DK Vine, which is like the Donkey Kong fan site, or really like rare universe fan
Yeah.
site that has been around for a number of years. The folks over there did a really good job, I think, of managing expectations, being very upfront, being like, I have no idea if this is gonna be at E3. Like, don't expect this at E3.
Yeah.
They have heard it's coming, that it's in development, but who knows when it's going to show up. And so, but the timing of it being kind of like the story picking up traction just a few weeks before E3
Yeah.
definitely had to be on everybody's mind.
Totally. And this is one that I definitely believe will come out at some point.
I mean, the monkey ball, if it was a fake out
Oh my
on the part of
gosh.
Nintendo, like well played, because
I bought it for a
bought
second.
it,
Yeah. Yeah. This to me, this is not a Star Fox Grand Prix situation where like it's weird vaporware that someone dreamed up and was never real. I feel like this is real. I feel like it will come out at some point. It just wasn't at the C3, which is something that happens.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of which, Animal Crossing New Horizons updates. I think we didn't hear anything about Animal Crossing New Horizons. There, I there's an appetite out there, obviously, for like more content in the game.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We are in it the second year of its like life cycle, so
And all the holidays are the same.
right,
They function the same way.
yeah. So, but nothing. We didn't hear anything about a major update coming to Animal Crossing.
It was weird to see the Animal Crossing fan communities like disappointed about it because it's not. It is a community that has been largely quiet for a while. And because they were very they had already exchanged their codes about selling turnips on someone else's island and making way too many bells. But just to sort of like rear up one more time and be like, hey, wait a minute, what about us? Is a little bit sad because it's such a sweet community of people who just want to hang out on an island and have fun. But yeah, just not this year, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there were interviews afterwards from different sources where people were asking like Bill Trinan about it, and or I think Doug Bowser was
Yeah.
asked, and he basically said like, "There's more stuff coming. You'll hear about it in the future." I don't know how much we should expect a huge major update. I wonder how much COVID did a number on
Sure.
whatever roadmap they had planned. I also wonder if like do they do a major like welcome amiibo type update for it in like a year or two?
I mean, even that would be sort of fast, though, right? Like, Welcome Amiibo came out like 3 or 4 years after, maybe even longer.
I think you're right. It probably was even longer.
Yeah, so something more like 5 years. I mean, if they do a big like refresh for New Horizons, but not until like 2025, like that's the timeline we're looking at, and it sounds worthless, right? It feels like it's so far away. But I don't. Yeah, it's Well, I also don't expect anything big to change in Animal Crossing for a while.
Yeah, and you also wonder just like at what point, like it's sold so much.
Yeah.
It had a number of updates. There is still pieces from other Animal Crossing games that did not make it into this one.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I always felt like New Horizons felt like a complete experience.
Totally.
Even if it didn't have all of the content of the previous games. And so you do wonder, like, at what point do they just pivot? Because it does not feel like they're treating Animal Crossing New Horizons like just an Animal Crossing platform that is going to continue to persist forever, like Minecraft, right? It feels like a discrete thing that exists and that they have done updates for and probably will get more content in the future, but that at some point they're going to pivot to a whatever the next Animal Crossing game is.
Yeah, and maybe that new Animal Crossing is a more online focused experience. Because one of the big downsides of Animal Crossing as it exists right now is that it's a huge pain in the butt to do to visit someone's island or to have someone visit your island. Like it's relatively easy to share codes and invite people and that sort of thing, but to actually do it, like the mechanics of it are just they're inconvenient. It takes too long.
Yeah, but like I think that's totally true. It is really obnoxious to have to like everybody has
Yeah.
to stop and wait and watch like the plane come in and everything. But I also think this was their first real like I guess I'm giving them a little bit of grace just because this is like their first like a shot at something like this, something this complex. And I know that it's 2021 and online games have been, like
Right,
online
around for a
universes
long
have
time,
exist
right?
for a long time at this point. But I'm willing to give them a little bit of slack.
Um, if the next version of Animal Crossing is like in a big city, with like lots of people occupying the same big city, like with skyscrapers and apartments and stuff, that'd be cool.
That would be really cool. That'd be really cool.
Next is Animal or not. That's what we just read. Fire Emblem. Supposedly there was a near
Oh, that's
complete
right.
Fire Emblem game that was in development, coming out of Intelligent Systems themselves. They'd gotten a lot of help from, was it Bandai Namco or Koei Tecmo? One of those.
One of those.
One of those helped develop Three Houses. And so the thinking was like, hey, we haven't seen anything new from Fire Emblem in kind of a while. There were sort of competing rumors that were just sort of fan-led rumors that either was going to be a remake of History of the Genealogy War, which is a Super Famicom game that was never developed or never localized outside of Japan. And then also rumors of a GameCube and Wii game collection, so Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, respectively, coming to the Switch. But yeah, we didn't get any Fire Emblem news.
Yeah. And interestingly, right, like Advance Wars, we did get and those games were originally developed by Intelligent Systems. We are getting a reboot of those or like a remake of those that is overseen by Intelligent Systems but not being developed by them. So, they did just ship Paper Mario The Origami King last year. So they did finish up a game and then the year before that they released uh
Three
Fire
Houses?
Emblem Three Houses, which
Yeah,
they did have more
2019.
like an
Yeah.
overseen role on. And so they've shipped a lot of stuff recently. Fire Emblem Three Houses performed really well. I think it no surprise we're going to be seeing more Fire Emblem at some point. I I I have no reason to think otherwise that like this history of the genealogy war thing could be true. It does seem like the fans have really like worked themselves up into like
Yes.
this is what it is going to be. A remake would make sense. We got that like Fire Emblem Echoes on the 3DS. Like
And the games are always being like remade and re-released in one form or another. So yeah, it wouldn't be that surprising for them to. Oh, and also we always blow past this one, but they re-released the Famicom Fire
oh yeah,
Emblem,
that's right.
which
That's right.
obviously wasn't a hugely labor-intensive project, but like it was something that they did and like spent money on developing.
I guess what I'm kind of like driving towards is I think it a little bit surprising we haven't heard anything Fire Emblem this year. There was a while where we were consistently getting like Fire Emblem
Yes.
stuff every year. but I do think that a Fire Emblem game is like pretty close, like a
Yeah.
year out.
Yeah, I believe that as well. Although I do think that the Advance Wars 1+2 boot camp, reboot camp, kind of buys them time, right? Not only is it a game originally developed by Intelligent Systems, but it is a tactics game. So I think it like kind of feeds that same audience in a way that like they maybe don't need to do as much sort of audience care until that same time next year.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Up next is Project Triangle Strategy.
More strategy games.
So this one's third party,
Hmm.
developed by Square Enix. I would love to know more about this game, but it does feel a little early for us to be getting more information like at E3.
Yeah, they when it was originally revealed in the February 2021 direct, they said that it would be coming out in 2022. I don't actually think it will. I think it'll come out later
Oh,
than that.
uh-huh.
Um, they were doing the same thing with this that they did with Octopath Traveler and that they've done now twice with Bravely Default 2, where they put out a demo and then like solicited feedback from people to sort of like shape the direction of the development of these games. And I guess like not hitting 2022 would be a long time in development. But I don't know. I don't think it's a surefire thing that we get it that early.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. For whatever reason in my head, I imagine this being like an April game,
Hmm.
like coming like pretty
Yeah,
soon in
April
2022.
2023.
But yeah, as far as like third party stuff goes, if this was going to show up anywhere, I I am a little bit surprised we didn't hear anything at like Square Enix's conference.
Yeah, well, I mean that thing was jam packed with just Guardians of the Galaxy and nothing else. Also, another like, hey, where is this game? But also, we know it's not coming until 2022. Splatoon 3. Um, we don't really know anything else about Splatoon 3. It was revealed in that February 2021 direct, which is kind of like a teaser trailer. Uh, and that's it. Kind of sitting in the dark. I had predicted that we would get a lot of it. Um, and really, I should have predicted if we get any of it, we get a lot of it. That would have been a better prediction, but I didn't. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. So I lose a point. I don't know how it works.
I think this is one where we're gonna get a blowout closer to the release of the game, but I don't think that's coming until like maybe E3 next year.
Oh, interesting. So you think it's going to be like a late in the year?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it releases around the same time frame as Splatoon 2 did, which is like July.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So up next
Mhm.
was the final Super Smash Brother Ultimate character reveal, right? Like we did get one, but there is still one unknown DLC character out there for us to discover in the coming months. And we had kind of talked about, oh, is it possible that they're just gonna like they did in 2019, E3 2019, where it's just like, hey, here's the direct, and here's one character, here's two characters,
Yeah.
just getting them both out there.
Yeah, and that is not the case. We are still before the more in-depth Mr. Sakurai
Oh, that's right.
presents.
That's coming up.
Or yeah, that comes out June 26th, which I guess will be the end of this week, right? Is that right? 26th is today is the 24th is Saturday, I guess. Weird. Um, so yeah, we'll get more of Kazuya from Tekken. And then we don't really know when we could possibly expect the final character. When we were talking about this the other week with Connor, I couldn't find the announcement that said when all of the characters would be out by. Mark, I found it. It was in the Mr. Sakurai presents on Byleth as a character, the last character of the first set, saying that all the characters would be released by December 31st, 2021.
That follows because I feel like we've been getting one a quarter basically.
Yeah. And in fact, it actually gives us a lot of time,
Yeah.
the entire like back half of the year. And I would expect it to be revealed and released sometime in like September or October.
Some of these are a little more rapid fire, but Pokemon wasn't mentioned at all.
No Pokemon. But we got releases for the Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl remakes, as well as a release date for Legends Arceus. And just this week, sort of blowout information about the Pokemon Unite. Is that the
The MOBA.
MOBA? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like Pokemon oftentimes gets its own like thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we're going to be hearing a ton more about this game in the coming months.
And then Mario, not that Mario was absent, right? We saw both Mario Party and Mario Golf, but there were no announcements of Mario platformers, 2D, 3D, new games, re-releases, nothing like that.
I still believe in my heart that a new 2D Mario, in the vein of New Super Mario Brothers, is right around the corner.
I mean, I feel like you could be right were it not just Mario's 35th anniversary and they didn't just like blow the doors off Mario content. And like when you think of Mario games that have made it to the Switch, um, still well counting the games that they're no longer selling from the Mario 3D All Stars collection. It's a ton of them, right? It is most Mario games are available on Switch. It kind of makes sense to me that they would pump the brakes on it for at least 1 year.
This is a personal plea from me,
Mm-hmm.
but Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, where are you?
Where
And
let's change it. Let's change this to a personal plea from we, because I also want to know where this game is.
and not like, look, take your time, like
Yeah, make it
polish
good.
it, do what
Make
you
it
do
good.
what you got to do. It's more just out of curiosity and desperation. Do I want to know what is going on with this game and or when it'll be released?
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
because it looks so good. Everything we've seen, everything we've heard, when they were like kind of gearing up the PR machine when we thought it was going to come out like spring last year. You know, we started hearing some stuff where there's like an insane amount of playable characters.
Yeah.
Waddle is playable. You know, it's checking all the boxes of my Star Wars fandom. So I just can't wait to get my hands on.
Yeah, and I mean, we're starting to get into the like, oh no, this game will never come out territory because you and I saw this game at E3 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Hands off, but we saw someone playing it, which like that was 2 full years ago.
Yeah, but
There's a pandemic.
yeah, exactly. That's what I think. Like, okay, take your time, but I am eager for this to come out.
Next up, Bayonetta 3. Missing in action, really in its entirety since being announced in 2017.
Yeah, I think it was December 2017.
This is before the games were Bayonetta 1 and 2 were re-released on Switch.
Right. It was like all at once. We got the
Yeah.
announcement for 1 and 2, and then that came out in like February 2018, and then Bayonetta 3 was announced. We've only seen the logo for it. This is another one where afterwards people are asking about it, and what is it? Nate Bildorf from Nintendo of America Treehouse said that Bayonetta 3 still exists, and then Bill Trinan followed that up, adding, "I will even go one further and say not only does it exist, but it's progressing well." This is one where I don't really care.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. Other than I care in that I know it is a big deal for Bayonetta fans. But yeah, I've got no love for the series personally. It is weird that it's just like gone quiet. I was just talking about a game that disappeared for like 2 years, and this is like 5 years.
It is weird, but also like I feel like Platinum Games has shifted focus
Yeah.
within that time, right? Like they are now trying to become their own publisher. Also, I believe the director of Bayonetta 2, who was leading Bayonetta 3, left Platinum a couple of years ago. It doesn't seem like it's been the smoothest development.
Yeah, it's
for
not a
Bayonetta
good
3.
story there.
But yeah, it will be interesting to see. Everybody take a drink. It'll be interesting to see when Bayonetta 3 shows up again, what it looked like.
And then the last item that we have on this list is the indie game Sports Story, which was originally also going to come out at some point last year. And they were like, "Hey, the game has gotten away from us, and it's big, and we're working on it. So who knows?" Just on the 14th of this month, June 14th, Sidebar Games, which is the developer of Sports Story, tweeted, "Sports Story mini update. Some parts of the game unexpectedly grew quite large. The tennis part now has a career that spans multiple zones. We decided that we had no choice but to see it through and look forward to sharing the results of our struggles. We think that it was worth it."
I loved Golf Story. This is another one for me in the same vein as Lego Star Wars, where it's like happy for you to take your time, do what you need to do with it. It's more just like excitement that I just want to know what's up, and I anticipate that it's coming soon, but who knows?
Yeah. And then that's sort of the end of our list. Like everything else kind of falls into the realm of like Nintendo franchises that we had no reason to suspect that we would see. As much as I want to see a new Star Tropics game or Rusty's Real Deal Duck Hunt, like some things are just not actually going to come to Switch.
I guess the one that comes to mind that I think we could have reasonably anticipated, but on the other hand, because we haven't heard anything from it for so long, maybe at this point we shouldn't expect anything, and that's Pikmin 4.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Because, we had the Pikmin 3 Deluxe come out earlier this year?
I think
late last year?
I think it was late last year. Yeah.
And then, so maybe it's too early for Pikmin 4 to be released, but Miyamoto, and Pikmin 4, I don't think has ever been, like, officially revealed or anything other than Miyamoto talking about it in an interview when somebody asked about it, like E3 2017 or something.
Didn't he say it was basically done?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why people have been like speculating that every year is the year where we're going to see it, because what's up with Pikmin 4? And I think that is kind of the question. Would it surprise me if Pikmin 4 no longer exists? Or, was completely scrapped and turned into something else?
Have we talked about this before? Is it possible that Hey Pikmin was Pikmin 4? Is that the name of that game?
It is.
Pikmin? Okay.
Does the timeline? I don't think it makes sense to me, only because like that was developed by an outside company.
Great point.
And I think the way that they're like managing the fact that Pikmin 3 Deluxe came out feels like franchise management to me.
Yeah, totally.
Where they are preparing us. It is the Metroid Prime trilogy of Pikmin, where it's like, yes, we are preparing people for the reemergence of Pikmin.
Now, this is dangerous. This is you playing in the realm of things that make sense are happening at Nintendo, which I know we're leaning into now.
In some regards, you're right. But we still have to be cautious.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's up with Pikmin 4? We'll probably never know.
That's good. That's great. I love it. All right, Mark. That's what we thought was missing from Nintendo's E3 Direct this year. Was there anything that you were expecting or hoping to see that didn't make it? Email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com.
We really want to hear it. How we're going to work it into the show now that we've closed
we can't
the
talk
book
about it anymore
on E3 2021. But we will figure it out, because we do want to hear your thoughts. We would love to share them on the show.
Right. I may just start talking about games that weren't there without setting it up at all. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And then you'll just have to know. You will have had to make it to this point in this episode to have the context for future episodes.
So, Patrick.
Yeah.
What a great E3 it was.
What a great E3. I'm glad that we can put it to bed now and just move into normal old boring life, which, is comforting in a way. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please, if you like the episode, you can rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can share the episode on wherever you share things, Facebook or Twitter, or wherever you share things. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. There's also a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thank you for listening.
Hey, it's Mia. Hey, it's Allie. And we host the Rom-Com Review podcast, P.S. I Love Rom-Coms. Each week, we'll have incredible guests come and discuss a new rom-com, grand gestures, meet-cutes, and of course, that elusive chemistry. Mia, what are you doing holding that giant boombox over your head? I'm hoping to win over listeners with this grand gesture. Take us back! Find a new episode every week and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by Campfire Media. Wow, you're still holding that boombox. Yeah, I've got great upper body strength. Thanks, CrossFit.
P.S. I love rom-coms.
Campfire.